Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. We'll begin with an invocation from Fire Captain Troy Holtorf.
Father God, you are good, always and forever, and we come before you with humble hearts. We lift up our 2 Phoenix police officers who were shot in the line of duty last night. May you hold them and keep them, watch over them, and be with their families. We pray healing over that whole situation. Lord, I thank you for our first responders. Bless them as they go. And now for us, Father God, you have searched us and know us. Where can we go from your Spirit, Lord? Or where shall we flee from your presence? If we go up to heaven, you are there. If we go down to the grave, you are there. Even in darkness, we cannot hide from you. So search us, O God, and know our hearts. Test us and know our anxious thoughts. Lord, point out anything in us that offends you and lead us along the path of everlasting life. We need you, Father. Make your presence among us now as we gather to address today's agenda. Help us to trust in you as we go. It's for your glory and our good. And it's in the mighty name of Jesus Christ that I pray this. Amen.
Thank you. Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Thank you to Captain Holtorf for those important remarks, including recognizing our 2 heroic officers who were injured in the line of duty responding to a crime last night, another unconscionable act of gun violence against our officers, and a stark reminder that their job comes with immense risk. I am so grateful, as are my colleagues, to the team at Banner University Medical for the excellent care that our officers are receiving and have received. One of our officers will have lifelong impacts, but he has been able to go home today. And we have another officer who very much needs your prayers. Thank you to people all over the country who have reached out to offer this support at such a difficult time. We'll now call the meeting to order. Will the clerk call the roll?
Councilman Galindo Elvira. Councilwoman Guardado.
Here.
Councilwoman Hodge Washington.
Here.
Councilwoman O'Brien.
Here.
Councilwoman Pastor.
Here.
Councilman Robinson.
Here.
Councilman Waring. Vice Mayor Stark.
Here.
Mayor Gallego.
Here. Elsie Duarte and Carmen Cota are with us to provide interpretation. Elsie, would you introduce your team?
Thank you, Mayor. Hello, my name is Elsie Duarte, and together with my colleague Carmen Cota, we will be servicing as Spanish interpreters for today's formal meeting. I will now take a moment to introduce ourselves to our Spanish-speaking audience and review some guidelines. Buenas tardes, bienvenidos a la reunión formal del Consejo Municipal. Mi nombre es Elsie Duarte y junto con mi colega Carmen Cota estaremos sirviéndoles hoy como intérpretes a nuestra audiencia de habla hispana. Deseamos pedirles antemano, si es que va a dar un comentario público, por favor hable despacio, con claridad y evite tener distracciones de fondo. Finalmente, pause después de cada 1 o 2 oraciones para poder interpretar lo que esté diciendo de la manera más completa posible. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much. Will the clerk read the 24-hour paragraph?
The titles of the following ordinance and resolution numbers on the agenda were available to the public at least 24 hours prior to this council meeting and therefore may be read by title or agenda item only. Ordinances number G7254, 7270, 7292 through 7296, S51211 through 51232, and resolutions 22241 through 22244.
Thank you so much. Will the city attorney please explain the role of public comment?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Members of the public may speak for up to 2 minutes to comment on agenda items. Comments must be related to the agenda item and the action being considered by the council. General comments that go beyond the scope of the agenda item must be made in the citizen comment session at the end of the agenda. The City Council and staff cannot discuss or comment on matters related to pending investigations, claims, or litigation. Additionally, any member of the public who appears before council in their capacity as a lobbyist must, as required by Phoenix City Code, disclose this fact before addressing council. The city code requires speakers to present their comments in a respectful and courteous manner. Profane language, threats, or personal attacks on members of the public, council members, or staff are not allowed. A person who violates these rules will lose the opportunity to continue to speak.
Thank you so much. We will begin with the meeting minutes for formal meetings. Councilwoman Pastor, do you have a motion on items 1, 2, and 5?
Oh, I'm glad you bundled it, because that's what I was going to do. Yes, I approve 1, 2, and 5.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Passes unanimously. Councilman Waring, do you have a motion on item 3? Any corrections? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Vice Mayor, do you have a motion on item 4?
Yes, I do. I move to approve the minutes of December 14th, 2022.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Passes unanimously. Councilwoman O'Brien, do you have a motion on item 6?
I move to approve the minutes from January 25th, 2023.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Passes unanimously. We next move to the boards and commissions portion of our agenda. Vice Mayor, do we have a motion?
Yes, I do. I move to approve the mayor and city council boards and commission nominations.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Passes unanimously, and I believe we have one member of our community sworn in today. Please raise your right hand. I state your name.
Ben Kozik,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Arizona,
the Constitution and laws of the state of Arizona,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
and defend them against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
and defend them against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
faithfully and impartially
discharge the duties of the office of
discharge the duties of the office of
State Your Board
Assessment Manager,
according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations, Commissioner, and if you would please go behind the board, the council would like to congratulate. Congratulations to Ben. Thank you for serving. Our boards and commissions provide a vital role at the city of Phoenix. We next go to the liquor license portion of our agenda. We provide an advisory role to the state of Arizona. Vice Mayor, do we have a motion?
Yes, I move to approve items 8 through 21, noting that item 21 is as revised.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments? Roll call. Or no, I'm sorry. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Passes unanimously. City Clerk, are we ready for ordinances, resolutions, new business, planning and zoning?
Yes, Mayor.
All right, Vice Mayor, do we have a motion?
Yes, I move to approve items 22 through 61, except the following. Items 32, 33, 36, 49, 56, 57, 58, 59, and 60. Noting that item 58 has additional information, item 61 is an add-on. And can the clerk confirm if there are any other items that should be excluded for in-person public comments?
Yes, Mayor, Vice Mayor, also excluding item 46. That's item 46.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Galindo Elvira,
Yes.
Guardado,
Yes.
Hodge Washington,
Yes.
O'Brien,
Yes.
Pastor,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Waring, Stark,
Yes.
Gallego.
Yes.
Passes 9-0.
We next go to item 32. Vice Mayor, do we have a motion?
I move to approve item 32.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Item 32 is grants from the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian Community. We also approved grants from the Tohono O'odham Nation during the previous vote. We have wonderful partnerships with our tribal nations. Between these two items, they are helping us with a variety of different investments, from addressing summer heat impacts to fighting cancer. I wanted to particularly celebrate a partnership we have around Sidavaki Museum. It is currently under renovation and will be reopening on October 17th. Visitors can get a sneak peek at the new exhibitions, including Following Their Roots, a look at indigenous farming techniques across Arizona. It will also include a very timely discussion of sustainable farming practices and indigenous food. At the reopening, the city will announce the adoption of a formal land acknowledgement, thanks to Mayor and City Council colleagues, including Councilwoman Pastor, for their commitment to respecting our indigenous communities. The museum was recently accredited by the American Alliance of Museums, which serves as a mark of distinction, highlighting dedication to meeting museum industry standards and professional practices. So we'd encourage everyone to put a renewed visit or a first visit to the museum on your calendar for the end of fall. It celebrates our roots as a community and is a real point of pride for us. Any additional comments? Roll call.
Galindo Elvira,
Yes.
Guardado,
Yes.
Hodge Washington,
Yes.
O'Brien,
Yes.
Pastor,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Waring, Stark,
Yes.
Gallego.
Yes.
Passes 9-0.
Thank you so much. Councilman O'Brien, do you have a motion on 33?
Yes, Mayor, I move to approve item 33.
Second.
And I'll turn to Councilman O'Brien for comments.
Thank you so much, Mayor. I just want to take an opportunity to thank staff for partnering with ASU on applying for these funds. These funds will go towards helping bolster our new community court designed to help homeless individuals who find themselves in legal trouble. Community court has been a great success since it started in January 2024. These funds will be used to help find housing for those participants whose individual community court plans require housing. I am beyond thankful for the staff who continue to make community court such a success. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Vice Mayor.
Thank you. I just wanted to commend Councilwoman O'Brien again for spearheading our community court. It certainly has been a success.
Thank you so much. Roll call.
Galindo Elvira,
Yes.
Guardado,
Yes.
Hodge Washington,
Yes.
O'Brien,
Yes.
Pastor,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Waring, Stark,
Yes.
Gallego.
Yes.
Passes 9-0.
Item 36 is the issuance of lease revenue bonds with Mayo and the Brooks Rehabilitation Facility through the Phoenix IDA. Do we have a motion?
Yes, I do. I move to approve item 36.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. This is great news for Councilman Waring's District 2, but also our entire city and state. It's a great example of what the Phoenix IDA can be doing to advance economic development and make sure that we have more healthcare options in the city of Phoenix. Mayo's growth has very much been in partnership with the city. With today's action, we are a partner at more than $245 million, primarily on the financing side, but in several different ways. Our work together can really impact healthcare in our community. Tomorrow, I am excited to join several people here at Mayo for the opening of the Integrated Education and Research Building, including the College of Medicine. It signifies we want to be a city with the very best in healthcare options, and we also are committed to advancing more access to doctors. We know so many people in our community do not have an easy time finding a doctor. We only have about 40% of the primary care physicians we need, and we are projected to be short more than 8,000 doctors by 2030. So the City of Phoenix is pleased to be a partner in addressing this and also making sure we have great rehabilitation options, including the one we will support today. So thank you. Any additional comments? Roll call.
Galindo Elvira,
Yes.
Guardado,
Yes.
Hodge Washington,
Yes.
O'Brien,
Yes.
Pastor, Robinson,
Yes.
Waring. Thank you. Stark,
Yes.
Gallego.
Yes.
Passes 9-0.
We next go to item 46, which is work with ADOT. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve item 46.
Second.
Motion and a second. Eric Nielsen.
Hi, my name is Eric. I'm not 100% sure what the agreement between you guys and the ADOT says, and I wasn't really sure where to stick this public comment, so I saw something about transportation, so I thought it might be a good place to put it. What I came to speak about is in relation to the $80 million theft. It wasn't really a theft, really. They took away your rights to raise taxes, but you can't look at it like that. I feel like
And that would be a perfect for the call to the public at the end, so we are happy to take you first on that one. But this is whether you would like to see us continue to partner with the Federal Highway Administration.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. And folks, remind me if I do not take him first. Any additional comments? We've appreciated the federal investment in the city of Phoenix and have benefited enormously. Roll call.
Galindo Elvira,
Yes.
Guardado,
Yes.
Hodge Washington,
Yes.
O'Brien,
Yes.
Pastor,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Waring, Stark,
Yes.
Gallego.
Yes.
Passes 9-0.
We next go to item 46, which is the Water Services Department and Phoenix College Pilot Degree Program. I'm sorry, 49, thank you.
I move to approve item 49.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, noting that Councilwoman Pastor will not be participating in this item. I want to thank the Water Department for what they're doing to make sure their team has more access to educational options. Particularly thank you to Tammy and Roberta, who have been working long on this. We want to be an employer of choice and help people continue to progress in their careers. Sometimes that requires a degree. I also think it's very important we look at where we do require degrees, and if you don't need a college degree, we want to remove those requirements. But we're a strong supporter of educational opportunities, and this is a great step forward. Thank you to Troy and team for your leadership. Any additional comments? Roll call.
Galindo Elvira,
Yes.
Guardado,
Yes.
Hodge Washington,
Yes.
O'Brien,
Yes.
Pastor. Oh, I apologize. Robinson,
Yes.
Waring, Stark,
Yes.
Gallego.
Yes.
Passes 8-0.
Now we will turn to the planning and zoning portion of our agenda. We'll begin with item 56, which is the southwest corner of Scottsdale Road and Sweetwater Avenue. I will open the public hearing. We have one comment. We will turn to Dave Reichert. Floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. I am here. My name is David Rickert. I live at 9219 East South Trailside Drive, and I'm here representing two small business owners along Scottsdale Road. I'll cut to the chase here. The Planning Commission had done everything we needed to do except for two sidewalk requirements along the frontage of Scottsdale Road. Does the staff have the slides set? I'll go through these briefly. I also wanted to point out I have a laser print pointer. Okay.
And today we will have 2 minutes on all items except for item 58. Each side will have 5 minutes, and item 59 and 60, 10 minutes aside.
while they're trying to get the slides up. The Planning Commission debated this issue of sidewalks. It was a split vote, and at this point, the sidewalks that are not shown or are asked to be developed are along a subdivision that was built in 1971, and it was done, there are no sidewalks in the immediate area at all. The City of Phoenix, during that 20 years from the time it was pre-developed to now, have worked on this street several times. The sidewalks were not required, not put in because of public safety issues or any other issues in front of this neighborhood. These lots were rezoned for purposes of RO zoning. The developer and Jason Morris, who represented them, and I know you all know him, he had indicated to me yesterday that the cooperation amongst the three fell apart right after the zoning in 2009. So by virtue of that, nobody's built any sidewalks in front of these properties. The decomposed granite can be walked on, it can be bicycled on, and it can be dealt with in a way for even a carriage or something across there. If you know the area at all, it's highly maintained, and only recently had the enforcement become an issue with this property. So with that in mind, we're asking for those two stipulations to be taken off the agenda and the balance of the Planning Commission recommendation approved. And we do that under the standpoint of these resources to these small property owners is significant. It's about $25,000 per lot, and there are 5 lots as you go up towards Scottsdale Road. That, I guess the slides didn't come up, but that is the essence of what I had to say today. And it just seems to me unfair that the city has not seen the necessity to put the sidewalks in. Why do the property owners now that are later than or after the developer was on the property several years ago? Thank you.
Thank you so much. That is our only speaker. We'll close the public hearing and turn to Councilman Waring. Did we miss a speaker on? No, okay, we'll turn to Councilman Waring.
Okay, thanks, Mayor, appreciate it. So real briefly, Josh, this went to the Planning Commission and they requested these sidewalks, and all these arguments I presumably were made, and they said it was necessary.
Mayor, Councilman Waring, that's correct. As Mr. Rickert mentioned at the beginning of his presentation, this request did go before the Planning Commission, where Mr. Rickert outlined a series of modifications. The Planning Commission did agree with a few of those. On the deletion of the requirement for the sidewalk, they declined Mr. Rickert's request and forwarded it to the council with the idea that the sidewalk would be built and maintain that stipulation.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to make sure I followed along. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much. We have closed the public hearing. Do we have a motion on item 56?
Second.
Roll call.
Galindo Elvira,
Yes.
Guardado,
Yes.
Hodge Washington,
Yes.
O'Brien,
Yes.
Pastor,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Waring, Stark,
Yes.
Gallego.
Yes.
Passes 9-0.
Thank you.
Item 57 is at the northeast corner of 7th Avenue and Van Buren. We'll open the public hearing. We do not have any members of the public to comment. We do have 2 members. All right. All right, then before we go to the public hearing, I will turn to Councilman Galindo Elvira for a motion.
Thank you, Mayor. Regarding the Milam property, I move to deny per the Planning Commission recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We'll open the public hearing. We do have Craig and Marilyn here to speak. Hearing that motion, do you still need to speak?
What did you motion for? To go against the commission or to agree with the commission?
Councilman, would you repeat
not
your motion?
rezone. Oh, okay.
Yes, Mayor, my motion was to deny per the Planning Commission recommendation.
Oh, okay. Do you still need to speak? No. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. You did the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The speakers do not need to speak. We will close the public hearing. Does anyone wish to comment? Roll call.
Galindo Elvira,
Yes.
Guardado,
Yes.
Hodge Washington,
Yes.
O'Brien,
Yes.
Pastor,
No.
Robinson,
Yes.
Waring, Stark,
Yes.
Gallego.
Yes.
Passes 8-1.
Very difficult site. Want to thank our staff for working so hard to try to get a win here. Item 58 is at the southeast corner of 41st Street and Baseline Road. Each side will have 5 minutes for presentation, the applicant and appellant. After that, anyone registered to speak will have 2 minutes. We will open the public hearing. We will begin with the applicant. Nick Wood on behalf of the applicant. Is that right?
Yes. Mayor, members of the council, Nick Wood, Snell and Wilmer, 1 Arizona Center, and we represent Safe Store. If we could bring up the application, the presentation. Oh, thank you.
Mayor, could we stop the clock while we're trying to bring the presentation up, please?
Thank you. So the property is located at the southeast corner of the intersection of 41st Street and Baseline. It's about a 3.8 acre site. It has never had any development on it. We looked at historical photos, and there's a huge wash that runs right along the east side of it that floods it each and every time it rains heavily with water coming off of South Mountain. It's zone C2, and we're here asking for a special permit. A little bit closer shot. One of the things I want to point out is you can see the wash on the east side of the property, but 41st Street is really the only way in and out for all of those rooftops that you see that are south of the site. And when we first reached out to them, one of the biggest issues, of course, was traffic. The main issue, of course, is that 41st Street is just 2 lanes in and out. If someone comes to the intersection and wants to turn left, they have to wait for cross traffic because it's a full movement median break. And if you're behind them and you want to turn right, you're going to be sitting there for quite some time, especially during peak hours. One of the hallmarks of a very successful zoning case is neighborhood involvement. We've done 2 phases worth of outreach, 11 meetings with neighborhood representatives and a developer, and then phase 2, where we've had actually 23 meetings, really beginning in June. I want to thank Councilwoman Hodge Washington. I want to thank Trent Marchuk, who is the chair of the South Mountain Village, and also Brian Harvey, who's here as a neighborhood leader. Through all of their efforts and all the work, we're here today with solutions to many of the issues that were presented during this entire process. We also, of course, knocked on doors. We knocked on 1,000 doors. There's residential across the street to the north, residential all around us. We've had 467 connections. Of that, we have 395 letters of support, which you have in your packet, as well as 33 verbal support, 29 neutrals, and 10 letters of opposition. These are the changes that resulted from the outreach. Building height, although C2 allows for 30 feet, we have 24-foot tall buildings, but we even had a step down in the middle of the building, so there's actually 1 story. So we're at 2 stories at 24 feet, and then 1 story basically at 17. We've agreed to widen. We're going to make a dedication of a portion of 41st Street to create 2 lanes that come out onto Baseline. So if you're turning left, you have a dedicated lane for left turns. If you're turning right, you have a dedicated lane for right turns, so you don't have backup. This is also a very low traffic generator. When you have storage, I think it's probably less traffic than almost a cemetery. But always, traffic is always an issue, of course. We've modified the building orientations and the building layout. We've redesigned the architecture. We've done revisions to the landscape palette. We're extending the multi-use trail. We're going to build a multi-use trail along the front, but we're also going to actually build a bridge over the wash because the wash is significant. We've added an additional entrance and exit right along baseline in front of the building, and we're adding retail. There's never been an instance in Phoenix where there's retail as part of a self-storage facility. I actually reached out to Elliot Pollock, who I think you all know, and asked Elliot whether actually retail will work here. And he believes that about 2,500 square feet of retail may work. We have a two-story level, so we may even be able to put another 2,500 square feet of retail above that. And of course, we're even adding an additional basement level, which allows us to lower the two-story to a one-story. Here's the site plan. Again, you can see on the right side, that's how big the wash is. You can see the landscape that we've agreed to put in, and the retail, of course, would be on the west side of the building. Here's the architecture. We're talking about core 10 steel. We're actually putting what they call cubes on the top, those blue things. Members of the village suggested that we maybe add that because that's actually an element of the South Mountain Library. As you can see, we have on the right side, that's now the two lanes, the one right lane, the one left lane coming out of 41st Street. You can see the landscaping and the incredible architecture really for a self-storage facility. This is looking, again, from the west to the east. You can see the double turn lane on the west, but you can see the landscaping even in the back of the building. Another shot of the building. This is on the eastern side of the building. You can see the wash that's on the left, and actually there's a bridge that we're going to build over the multi-purpose lane. These are all of the letters that you have in your packet in support, neutral, etc. And with that, I'll answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much. We have Lori or her designee. You have 5 minutes as the appellant.
My name is Lori File. I live at 3940 East Beverly Road in Phoenix. And I'm one of the neighborhood representatives who was asked to speak on behalf of the area residents that will be most impacted by this project. And I'd like to begin by acknowledging the fact that the applicant did allow some of the residents a seat at the table during the redesign on this project. And our ability to add input on the building design, on the retail space, and the landscaping plan has significantly improved the overall aesthetics of this project. With their revised design and upgraded materials, we do see one positive, and that is it will set the standard for future development in our community. However, now the residents are feeling pressured to support something that still does not meet the standard of a proper land use for this site. So the neighbors firmly believe that the Village Planning Handbook guidelines on points to consider in reviewing rezoning requests substantiates the belief that the specific parcel is not suited to such a land use. Public record validates that point when the Village Planning Commission voted it down 10-0. Furthermore, it was hardly a strong endorsement by the Planning Commission when it was voted 5-4. When our councilwoman asked the village to review the new building designs again at the village, there was not a requested vote. However, the public record from that meeting indicates that of the 12 committee members that did discuss this project, 7 out of 12 clearly stated that even though the process had improved, the resulting land use was still improper for this site. Just a few of those quotes from the committee members include, it doesn't provide enough space for the community and doesn't fulfill the mission of the plan. There's a broader community impacted. The retail space isn't going to attract a quality retailer because it's too small. We, The Village Planning Committee said, we don't want it. Why are you even here? We did our job in the beginning and turned it down because the community was against it. There was other land zoned for it in the community. It should have knocked out the developer. In closing, being the eternal optimist that I am, I was hoping that some of you would reach out to me to discuss this further and better understand the needs of the residents and what we were promised. I am happy that Keisha Hodge Washington did reach out to me, and we had a nice discussion about that. But I'm hoping that the rest of the council will understand that there are still some great concerns. We have been promised retail for quite some time, and 2,500 to 5,000 square feet is a very minimal amount of retail, and this is the largest site in the area. So at the end of the day, when you vote on this special permit, you will be voting on a public record that failed 10-0 at the village, passed 5-4 at Planning Commission, and again failed at the village informational session just this last August with a 7-4 vote. All the residents ask is for your careful consideration in this matter. Your vote won't just affect a large out-of-state developer. It's going to affect the very lives of hundreds of residents that live in this area for decades to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have next in person Brian Harvey, followed by Greg Bunnell, virtual.
Hi, my name is Brian Harvey. I live at 7642 South 41st Place, Phoenix, Arizona, 85042. I'm the author of the latest design of the project, so Nick happened to mention my name, so I just wanted to put a face with the name. I didn't plan on speaking today, so I'll be very, very, very short. I did have a gentleman's agreement with Joe Villasenor, who's a representative of the applicant, that we would not bring up the letters of opposition and support, because for every letter that they have, we knocked them out with a letter in opposition, and that's in public record. So I'm not upset. I'm merely wanting to make sure that the record is set and is straight, that we did have hundreds of letters in opposition to this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg online, and then in person, Scarlett.
Hello?
Hello, we can hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay, I wanted to make it clear that that in the very first vote, the neighborhood did show up and they were unanimous, and we voted, and they had good arguments, and we voted unanimously against the project. But that the neighborhood, at least people in the neighborhood, kept negotiating with the developer, which always surprises me when they do that. And now we have a different building. And so I have changed my sentiment towards this because of the building. Before, I was voting with the neighborhood not to have it. But now that they've gone through all the work and all the negotiations of coming up with a rather amazingly good-looking building that's going to be in the right place, I now support having the building built. I wish it was someplace where there actually was a better zoning, but I think that all that negotiation and all that work and the result is something that we can all be proud of in the village, and we can be proud of as part of the baseline corridor master plan. I just want to be clear of that. Okay, thank you.
Councilwoman Pastor, or no, Councilwoman O'Brien.
Greg, are you still there?
I'm still here.
Are you a member of the Village Planning Committee?
Am I a member? Yes.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Greg, for your testimony. We will now go to in-person Scarlett, followed by Trent virtual. Okay, we just received an update. Scarlett is not going to speak. Trent is next, and then Catherine.
Hello, this is Trent Marchuk, address 3731 East St. Anne Avenue, Phoenix. I'm also the chair of the South Mountain Village Planning Committee. Been involved in the project since about November, December of last year, and actually encouraged the neighbors to negotiate with the developer, and they did early in the year, negotiate with the developer. And when it came to the Village for Info Only session, we realized that the neighborhood was very much against it. They showed up in force and asked the developer to really look at those points of consideration of rezoning in the village handbook. In March, when the developer came back, even with the proposed revisions, we saw that it wouldn't satisfy those points of considerations for rezoning, and we as a village denied it 10-0. Went to Planning Commission. I actually went to Planning Commission, spoke on record against the project. However, after Planning Commission, things changed considerably. Around June time period, a new representative was brought in on behalf of the developer, and it was in response to the neighbors requesting for additional discussions and negotiations on the site and on the building. And so I've been involved pretty heavily since June and have seen a lot of movement on both sides from the neighbors and the applicant. And what we have before us is something vastly different than what we saw in Planning Commission and at the village. Now we see, because of the design is now compatible with the area, neighborhood, and the village, the elevations, the building materials, landscaping, hardscaping, the inclusion of retail, the multi-use trail bridge, extending over the wash, the traffic mitigation, all of this really comes together. And when Brian, the neighborhood representative, the applicant, and I sat down and we re-looked at the points to consider in rezoning from the village handbook, we all agreed that actually this now satisfied the land use requirements. And so we, I
appreciate your testimony. Catherine is next, and then we'll go to Darlene, who's registered to speak if necessary, and see if she needs to speak.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. My name is Catherine Napoli. I reside at 3928 East Beverly Road, Phoenix, Arizona 85042. I've lived there since 1997, and that property is never flooded. You've heard it over and over. You've read it in the hundreds of letters. This is an inappropriate land use, and you know it. This property is zoned C2 and should not get a C3 use through special permit, but I don't want to repeat what you've heard. I want to tell you about the way the residents and the community representatives, the residents who volunteered their time, were treated through this whole process. Bait and switch. At Village Planning, we were asked, what do you, the residents, want instead? We were asked, when we asked for neighborhood retail that was promised to us for decades, we were told that we were baiting and switching our position. Canvassing after promising not to. An agreement between the developer, residents, requested by our city representative was not to canvass with the new designs. Not other canvassing, just canvassing with the new designs. The developer ignored this and canvassed. And as Brian said, we had over 300 letters of opposition that we weren't going to talk about, but now we have to. Being chastised for meeting with the development department to see if we could get the retail that has been promised to us, the residents, for decades. Really? Really? The residents are doing the work the city promised, bringing in retail, or trying to, and we got scolded. So it became painfully clear in this process, because we know the vote is already cast. It became painfully clear that the residents mean nothing. Thank you.
Darlene is registered to speak if necessary. Darlene, did you have anything to add?
I do. Darlene Jackson, 4307 East Alta Vista, Phoenix, Arizona, 85042. I am a member of the South Mountain Village Planning Committee, and I commend the neighborhood for coming together and the support that they showed for one another and how they presented at the first meeting. I am in favor of the development, and this is why. When the community came in initially, they were in agreement that they would go along with the development if the developer was able to lower the building, do other aesthetics to the building, traffic mitigation. When the developer initially presented, they were out of order, and the Village Planning Committee supported the community and let the developer know they were out of order. We see that in how we voted. However, when we came back and the developer switched out some people and brought a better design, brought a betterment to the entire area, I have a problem with now the community deciding we don't want you at all, when initially they said they would work with the developer. It puts the committee in an awkward position, and it as if we're playing favoritism. So because I think what is fair is that the community and the developer work together. That's what we started with, and I think that's what we should end with. The developer has brought in an even better product, took care of every issue that the community brought up. I think it's only fair to the developer, while respecting the community, that this be approved.
Thank you. I believe that concludes public testimony on this item. I will close the public hearing. This item is District 8. I will turn to Councilwoman Hodge Washington.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a few questions that we want to get on record before we close. I will have a question for the applicant, if you may. One of the major concerns raised by the neighborhood was the desire for retail. Can you walk us through a little bit more of what that process included in determining the retail that is set forth in this design?
Sure, Mayor, Councilmember Hodge Washington. Because this thing had been vacant for so long, even though it's been C2, which allows for 365 different uses, we turned to Elliott Pollock. My client obviously is in the storage business, but when it comes to retail, we turn to somebody who we trust and gave us good advice. And this is not a great retail site for a whole host of reasons. But we thought, what if we did a hybrid? Again, as a negotiation, we'll bring something that they asked for, obviously not everything they asked for, but something that they did. So Mr. Pollock suggests that about 2,500 square feet of retail may work there. If it does, we may have an opportunity to add another 2,500 feet on the second floor. But we're willing to spend the money to create the retail component and go and market it and try and make it work.
And I know there was some concern in identifying the square footage amount of the retail, but what I'm hearing, based on what you were telling me, is there was an actual study performed to determine what would be a reasonable amount of retail that could work on that space.
Yeah, Mayor, Councilwoman Hodge Washington, yes. We actually had a full report that was completed by Mr. Pollock.
And that information, I presume, was shared with the neighborhood representative that had been a part of this conversation?
Yes.
Okay. The other question I wanted to ask you was with respect to the traffic concerns that we heard earlier. Do you believe that all of those have been alleviated with the left turn and the right turn lane?
Mayor, Councilwoman Hodge Washington, we believe so. Again, self-storage doesn't generate much traffic at all. Yet the biggest thing we heard over and over and over again was we really don't want any traffic generation on 41st Street because of the issue. It's just a small road that has 2 lanes. Baseline gets very busy during peak hours. If you're trying to make a left turn there, it's going to take some time. If you've got people behind you that want to turn right, there's nowhere else to go because this is the only way in and out of that neighborhood. So by us agreeing to make the dedication of an additional right-of-way, so we can now create 2 dedicated lanes, one dedicated left turn lane and then one dedicated right. So if someone's turning right, they don't have to wait. They can actually pull up to the corner and make their right turn movement, while the folks who are trying to turn left can wait for their opportunity to make their movement.
Thank you. Just one more question for you. You indicated as part of this process, there were quite a significant number of residents that were contacted, most were in opposition, and I heard response from the neighborhood indicating that there was an agreement that there was not going to be canvassing during a certain time. Can you tell me, can you clarify that for me?
Yeah, Mayor, Councilwoman Hodge Washington, over the past several months, we have been working with them closely, and you saw the results of those efforts. We have not gone out canvassing again, knocking on doors. Basically, we trust the work that we've done with the representative group that we've worked with.
Okay. So you don't believe that there was, I guess, let me not put words into your mouth. The concern I want to make sure I understand is whether or not there was any kind of outreach being done that was not agreed upon with the community.
Mayor, Councilwoman Hodge Washington, I'm not aware of any.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Should I put this together? I'm ready, Mayor. Okay. I want to preface this by saying one of the things I most appreciate about our city process is that Phoenix has a very open and transparent process through the planning and zoning development to determine appropriate land use. The process encourages public comment and participation at every level. It gives residents who have limited planning experience the opportunity to voice their concerns as it relates to the merits of the case and the application of city codes and ordinance. I wholeheartedly embrace that because I believe in bringing people together to resolve tough issues. This is a tough issue, but I don't believe that any voting body should have the power to make decisions without listening to the people who are impacted. When this case went through the Village Planning Committee, a compromise was so far away. As you heard, there was no willingness to sit down and discuss this. The applicants requested a continuance to try to bridge that gap, and the request was not approved by the Village Planning Committee. The applicant went to the Planning Commission where it was approved. At that point, I had before me a disapproval from one voting body and approval from another. Separately, I went to each side and asked if they would be willing to continue to work on this. I asked if they were willing to see if we can find a compromise. Despite their disapproval, each side had their own opinions on what should happen next. They both were willing to sit down and roll up the sleeves to see if there could be a resolution. I personally had 7 meetings where residents and a representative from the resident and the applicant were at the table. And I also know there were many more meetings without me. I believe that this would be the only safe store to incorporate retail, largely because of the input that we received from the community. The stipulations include 2,500 square feet of retail and restaurant space on the ground floor, again, because that was requested by the community. It also provides for the addition of a mezzanine, but no self-storage could be used in that space. The community was very adamant that they wanted to ensure that this would be the retail that they had hoped for. It also includes a pedestrian bridge to span the width of the drainage channel to provide continuous, uninterrupted multi-use trail usage. Again, these were all requested by the community and agreed to by the applicant. Instead of decomposed granite, the ground plan landscape is very intensive and includes riprap of different size to add to the character of the size. It includes the multi-use trail easements. These are the types of discussion that foster compromise. By its very definition, a compromise is a way of reaching agreement in which persons or groups give up something that is wanted in order to reach a resolution. I recognize there are still decisions to be made, but I think that the residents hammered out with the developer is something that will benefit all sides. When this initially was coming to council back in earlier this year, I had overwhelming opposition against it. I have seen as a result of the work that has been done, the opposition minimized. I'm not deminimizing the opposition that still remains, but the opposition is not as huge for the current process. I would like to thank the residents, particularly Brian Harvey. He worked very diligently. He lent his talents to his neighborhood and to our community to ensure that we could find something that works. It is no doubt that he loves his community, he respects his neighbors, and I think he did an outstanding job voicing their concerns. I just wanted to publicly state that to him. I also wanted to acknowledge the applicant for sitting down with the community and doing something outside of the box. So Mayor, with that, I would like to make a motion to approve per the September 4, 2024 memo from the Planning and Development Director and adopt a related ordinance.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Councilwoman Pastor.
Yes, Josh, I have some questions. When this is approved, or if it's approved, does the applicant have the ability to come back and change anything on the property? Or what would the process be if we vote today that it would be a mixed use or retail and other items? Would they have the ability to come back and say, we cannot make retail happen?
Mayor, Councilwoman Pastor, there are several stipulations on the property that are very specific about what can occur. If any deviations from those stipulations as outlined in the memo are sought by the applicant, they would need to file a request to the planning hearing officer and proceed through the public hearing process, which could go to the village, planning commission, and council if they'd like to make any changes to the stipulations.
So it would go back to the public process?
That is correct.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Roll call.
Galindo Rivera,
Yes.
Guardado,
Yes.
Hodge Washington,
Yes.
O'Brien,
Yes.
Pastor,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Waring, Stark,
Yes.
Gallego.
Yes.
Passes 9-0.
Thank you. We will next go to item 59 and 60, which are related cases at the southwest corner of 36th Avenue and Pinnacle Peak Road. We will have one public hearing and two motions. The applicant and the appellant will each have 10 minutes. The applicant can reserve 2 minutes for rebuttal. We have multiple members of the public in opposition, so they may use their 2 minutes for rebutting the rebuttal. We will begin with Mr. Anderson for the applicant, who will have up to 10 minutes and again may reserve 2.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of council. I also have a PowerPoint. If we can get that called up, please. That looks correct. Great, thank you. Mayor, I'm ready when you are. Mayor, members of
We
council.
are ready.
Okay, thank you. Mayor, members of council, Stephen Anderson, Gamma Burnham, 40 North Central, 20th floor in Phoenix. Here today on behalf of the applicant, Lennar Homes, or Lennar. And with me today from Lennar is Vicki Morris, who is the project manager. In addition to Vicki, our consulting team is all here as well in the event that the council has specific questions for any of the myriad experts who helped us out on this project. We come before you today with recommendations for approval from your professional planning staff, from the Deer Valley Village Planning Committee, from the Phoenix Planning Commission. The village vote was 8-1 on both of the cases that are before you today. The commission recommendations are unanimous. In addition, the Deer Valley Unified School District Board voted to support this proposal at their public meeting on July 8th. In addition, the Friends of Deer Valley have also considered this case publicly and have voted to support it. Most of the local business owners who have voiced a view are supportive of the project as well, and there have even been some neighbors who have been willing to publicly express their support for the project, either by writing or by appearing at public hearings that have previously been held on the case. We would ask you to accept all of the recommendations for approval and to approve this case yourselves, subject to the 40 stipulations that were ultimately recommended by the Planning Commission. And I would note that the Commission stipulations are different than the ones that were originally recommended to you. This project involves a vacant 80-acre infill site that is on the south side of Pinnacle Peak Road next to the Hurricane Harbor Water Park. This land has been owned for many, many years by the Arizona State Land Department. For the past 5 years, the site has been vacant. It's been the site of an abandoned and bankrupt golf school. In January of this year, the Arizona State Land Department auctioned the land off primarily for residential development with a small commercial portion. Lennar was the successful bidder at that sale. We outbid 3 other competing home builders in that auction. The State Educational Trust Fund, as you all know, is the beneficiary of the proceeds of that auction. Lennar now seeks to develop a 75-acre residential community of 294 homes that we call Paseo Heights. Lennar has filed 2 applications to advance the development of this property, a general plan amendment and a rezoning application. This site, like many infill properties around the city, is in the middle of an area that has a mix of land uses and zoning categories. To the north and to the northwest across Pinnacle Peak Road are single-family homes that are zoned R16 and R2. Lennar is proposing R16 homes at a lot size similar to the existing residences. In the R16 community to our north, the density is 5.8 dwelling units per acre, and in the R2 neighborhood to our north, the density is 5.1 dwelling units per acre. Lennar is proposing 3.9 dwelling units per acre, so our density is significantly lower than the existing neighborhoods across the street. Lennar believes that because our zoning is the same as the homes across the street and our density is lower, Paseo Heights will be a reasonable addition to the existing community. To our south and our west is the Maricopa County Adobe Dam Regional Park. The park sits on the floodplain on the north side of the Adobe Dam. It should be noted that the subject property that's before you today, the Lennar site, is not in that floodplain, nor is it part of the county park. It has never, in fact, been a part of the county park. There is, in any event, the floodplain is owned by the County Flood Control District, and the park is managed by the County Parks District. The park currently covers about 1,460 acres, shown on the graphic that's on the screen at the moment. Much of the park remains vacant today. Our little infill site is about 80 acres. Thus, the park is 18 times the size of our site. There is, in fact, no need or evidence to suggest that the park needs to expand its acreage outside of the existing floodplain. I would also note that the park is zoned RE43. Publicly owned parks are allowed by right in that zoning district. The park is currently drawing over 400,000 visitors a year. The individual operators in the park, like Hurricane Harbor, operate under master use agreements in which they pay a portion of their revenues to the county parks department. Under this arrangement, the county took in more than $1 million last year from the various tenants in the park. While we do come before you today with ample support, including the recommendations and endorsements that I have already mentioned, there are many residents in the broader community who do not want more homes in their area. That brings us to the City of Phoenix Housing Plan. In 2020, the council adopted the Phoenix Housing Plan, doing so out of concern for a citywide housing crisis. The plan is an effort to secure tens of thousands of new infill homes here in Phoenix across the entirety of the city and across all price ranges in order to drive up supply across the board. The policy is expressly intended to provide alternatives for many new families coming to our city, not just those who are buying their first home, but those who are looking to move up, so that such families have an option inside the city of Phoenix as opposed to having to consider moving out to places like Buckeye or Queen Creek. Lennar is asking to develop a residential infill project with the same zoning and lower density as the homes that are directly across the street. We have tried to answer every question that has been posed to us. We've provided the facts and studies on every point that has been raised. All of our consultants are here today, as I mentioned earlier, and are available for any specific questions the council might have regarding their work. We have secured the approval of the staff, the Village Planning Committee, the Planning Commission, and the school district. We ask you to approve this project subject to the 40 stipulations as recommended by the Planning Commission. Thank you.
Thank you. And that was Mr. Stephen Anderson, and now we will call Mr. Scott Anderson for the opposition.
And if we could have the slides for that were sent in. Okay. My name's Scott Anderson, and I live in Little Deer Valley. My address is 5029 West Whispering Wind Drive in Glendale, and I represent 970 homeowners who live in the Little Deer Valley area and who are opposed to this project. Mr. Anderson was kind enough to go ahead and plot out and map where the homeowners are from the list of homeowners that were contained in your attachment F on this zoning request. And he felt it significant to show that out of a quarter mile around, there were only 2 homes. If you look at how he drew his circle, half of it's in the Adobe Recreation area, the other half is on the commercial property, and so yeah, in that quarter mile. But you can see that the homeowners that I represent do live in almost exclusively in the Little Deer Valley area, and are opposed to this. Here is Little Deer Valley. You can see that the area has a unique topography where it's blocked off by mountains, the dam, and the landfill on the eastern side. This area 40 years ago was mostly desert, and when I moved there, the 100 or so other homes, we got very involved as the planning and developing of this community started, and we were involved in the master plan of this area. You can see the results of that here, where the low housing is in the center and it increases density as it goes to the side. At that time, when the developers came in, they wanted to put in commercial on every corner, every major intersection corner. They wanted to put a block of commercial. Our area doesn't have the normal traffic flow. As you can see, in this 8 square miles, there would normally be 8 or 10 major through roads to carry through traffic. In our neighborhood, there is only Happy Valley is the only road that goes through that really carries through traffic. All of the roads are just destination traffic coming in and out of the area. So at that time, they wanted to put commercial on every corner, and we said, we don't want commercial on every corner in our neighborhood. So we worked with the city planning department, and we said, well, what else can we do? We want to put it all in one place then. So a plan was developed where you'll note that all of the commercial is located east of 39th Avenue, where there's 12 acres right on another 27 acres are to the north of it on Happy Valley Road, and all of Norterra, the several hundred acres of commercial, is located just a mile to the east. This commercial provides all the commercial that our area needs when it's fully built out, and all of that commercial is located east of 39th Avenue, and that was our master plan for this area. We worked with the city and came to the zoning hearings. The developer was not initially supportive of our idea to locate all the commercial there and do this transitional zoning in the area. So they opposed it, and it was only through the city council that they were told to go back, work with the developers, come up with a compromise that's reasonable and fitting, and then come back with something. We have put out twice compromise possible offers to the applicant, and both times they did not engage with us as far as offering any counter offers or any options or alternatives. They basically just said no thank you and walked away. The developer back then didn't want to work with us either. And again, it was only through the city council saying, no, you have to go back and work with the neighborhood and come up with a better compromise, because our views are reasonable. We've worked to master plan this whole area. I sat on the village planning committee and voted for the zoning that you see before you right on this map. So we've done the right things. And if you look at Mr. Anderson's map, making that point, he's trying to say that it really only matters if you live right behind the project, if you're within a quarter mile or within a half a mile. We are not a neighborhood of NIMBYs who only worry about what's right behind us. We've master planned the whole area here for over 4 decades, and we're well invested in the area. Here's the general plan map, and you can see the Adobe Recreation area down at the bottom here in the multiple shades of green. Again, Mr. Anderson is quick to point out, oh, well, this was never part of the Adobe Park. And yes, the dark green area is Adobe Park that's owned by the county. And that part is separate. When we sat down to plan this out, we met with the county, Phoenix, Glendale, State Land Trust, and the Flood Control District. We all sat at a table to decide what to do with this area. Glendale said, okay, we'll take the part on the west end and we'll put in a parking lot and hiking trails that'll tie into Thunderbird Park. The county said, okay, we'll take the majority of it, and the state trust land, they kept the actual corner there and have done recreational activities on those over the years. The entire area is Adobe Recreation Area, and their property is definitely in Adobe Recreation Area. It's not part of the county park, but Mr. Anderson is playing a game of semantics to say that it's not part of the park. It is part of the Adobe Recreation Area, which is all of these areas by Glendale, by the state, and by the county. When we planned this out, that was the goal to create a regional recreational area that would serve the greater community. This is how it was ultimately built out, with go-kart tracks, golf courses, railroad stations, ultralight airports, radio-controlled airports, water park, a gymnastics stadium, and now immediately south of the property that they're proposing is being looked at by a consortium to develop even more activity, and it will be immediately adjacent to it. It will be right south with no buffering, no separation, which is what we worked for this whole neighborhood, was to have proper buffering and proper separation from homes versus intense uses. There's no buffering here. The people that move into this will have right over their back fence will be perhaps go-kart tracks, perhaps BMX bike races. We don't know, but there's no buffering. They've provided none for it. And again, Mr. Anderson was keen to point out the distances that their property will be from the existing go-kart tracks. But he failed to mention that the property immediately south, which is going to be developed, is no buffer, no distance. It's right behind them. So those people will have some very nuisance activity that will be behind them, and ultimately they will start filing complaints, complaining to the city, complaining to the county, and the activity in the park will be undermined and curbed to meet the complaints that are inevitable, because this just doesn't match any good planning or any good zoning book that you could read that says you don't put homes, single-family homes, immediately adjacent to intense uses like go-kart tracks and BMX bike races. It's just bad idea. And the commercial portion of their property is also misplaced. We already have an existing commercial right across the street, only a quarter mile from them, and it is currently 25% vacant. We had 2 different grocery stores tried to make a go of it here, and both of them failed. Ultimately, it was bought out by Goodwill, and now there's 26 suites of commercial, and a quarter of them are empty and not being used, or some of them are being used, Mr. Anderson will point out, but they're actually being used for storage. They couldn't rent them out for retail purposes because Pinnacle Peak doesn't get enough traffic to support them, so they're actually doing storage on there. And every day, neighbors who drive past here see the parking lot to the west of Goodwill sit empty with hundreds of parking spaces that are no longer needed. Only the first 20 spaces is all Goodwill uses. So this thing commercial is already being underutilized and already is being having the blight of vacancies all through it. And they want to add another 5 acres just a quarter mile away from it. It just doesn't make sense. And again, it isn't just good planning. And also it goes against the entire philosophy that we had when we planned out this area, the neighborhood, the city, everyone. It doesn't match. So at this point, I'm asking you to do what previous councils did and tell the applicant to go back, work with the neighborhood, come to some compromises, and don't disregard the 4 years of planning that was done by Maricopa County, Glendale, Phoenix, and the Arizona Trust Land, all to create this community the way it is today. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you. Thanks for your hard work on that presentation. We will next go to, and on the case generally, we'll next go to Phil, followed by Tom.
My name is Phil Moss. I live at 5321 West Misty Willow Lane, Glendale, Arizona 85310. And I'm one of the as Scott said, over 900 homeowners in the area that's against this rezoning. I'd just like to address one issue, the noise issue, the go-kart and dirt bike tracks that exist there now, the businesses. I live about 2.5 miles away from that, and basically when they're going and it's Fridays and weekends, it's like a buzzsaw going for hours, and I'm 2.5 miles away. The new homes apparently will be right next to this. I know what it's like to live in a very high noise area. I grew up in New York, across the bay from John F. Kennedy International Airport, under one of the landing flight patterns. So I know what it's like as a child living in a high noise area. And my question is, will the decibel level be unhealthy? I know that Lennar Homes commissioned and sponsored a study which said everything's fine. And my question to you is, could a motion to grant a delay for an independent acoustic study be done to determine whether the decibel level for new homeowners who will be right next to this, whether or not it's unhealthy? Thank you.
Thank you. Tom is next, followed by Joanne.
Is that me, Tom, or somebody else?
Good to see you. It's you.
It's a tough last name, I understand. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and members of City Council. I'm here today to represent the Friends of Deer Valley. We are writing this letter in support of the Lennar at Paseo Heights project. The Friends of Deer Valley is a nonprofit organization. We were formed in 2022 with the goal of giving residents a voice in the Deer Valley region in support of economic development through collaboration and community outreach. The Lennar at Paseo Heights project is an extremely well-planned project which will be a welcomed addition to the Deer Valley region. We are happy to have been included as part of the ongoing community outreach by Lennar regarding the entitlement of this project, and we're pleased to offer our full support and endorsement for their development plan. We hope that the Village Planning Committee, the Planning Commission, and the Phoenix City Council will support this project as well. This development will be a positive step in addressing affordable housing in the area and access. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Joanne is next. I'm sorry, we don't have Joanne? All right. And then Mr. Anderson, did you reserve 2 minutes? Do you need to? Mr. Stephen Anderson. Sorry, that was poor word choice. And if maybe you could speak to noise and noise disclosure.
Mayor, members of the council. That's it. Okay. Mayor, I'm happy to address the noise issue, and I think that's the perfect place to focus my remarks, although I do have a brief comment about the general plan as well. With regard to the noise issues, there was talk about the existing racetracks that are in the park today. You have a letter on file from those racetracks indicating that they do not object to this proposal. We earned that letter of non-objection from those racetracks by doing a noise study that indicated that the noise is not going to be a threat to the homes. You heard that mentioned by one of the opposition speakers. We also earned it by crafting a carefully negotiated disclosure document that went through several iterations after several meetings with the business owners in the area. And we also earned it because, as you heard from or saw from the graphic that Scott Anderson showed you, which is a graphic that we created, the existing homes are actually closer to the tracks than our homes will be. And in fact, the city's noise records indicate that over the past decade, there have been a grand total of 5 noise complaints generated by the park today by homes that are closer to those racetracks than our homes will be. And so that's why I think it is the case today that the only business owners who have indicated or taken a position on this case are the commercial businesses across the street on Pinnacle Peak Road who have indicated their support for this project. There are none of the business operators who are here today, such as Hurricane Harbor, to tell you that they are concerned about this project, and they haven't been at any of these hearings. The reason is because we've been working with them very closely throughout this process to let them know exactly what we are up to, and that's what happens when you have a good, regular, open line of communication with your immediate neighbors, as opposed to Scott Anderson, very nice guy, who lives 1.25 miles away from this site on a 1-acre lot in a neighborhood that is made up of 1-acre homes. With regard to the general plan, Mayor, nope, I'm out of time. Sorry. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, should I leave the hearing open? Great.
I have questions. So, Mr. Steven Anderson, talk about the general plan amendment, please.
Mayor, Councilmember O'Brien, I'm happy to do that. Thank you. The issue about the general plan is, of course, that the general plan that Mr. Scott Anderson references that he worked on is 40 years old. And so for 40 years, the county and the city and the community have had an opportunity to do something about the state land parcel and have chosen not to. I would submit to you that the reason for that is that the county has plenty of acreage in the park today, all of which can be used, for example, this potential new user that Scott Anderson mentioned, for free. There is no reason to go out and buy state land department to expand a 1,400-acre park by 80 acres. What should be happening to the general plan is that it should be evolving, which is what has happened on the north side of Pinnacle Peak Road, immediately opposite us. The general plan has changed completely since 1985 on the north side of Pinnacle Peak Road, and you all can imagine the reasons why. What didn't exist in 1985? The Loop 101, which gave rise to USAA, which we thought was great and awesome at the time it happened. Then comes the Loop 303, followed by TSMC. Things evolve and change in this rapidly growing city, and I would submit to you that a general plan amendment to recognize those changes is perfectly appropriate in this case.
Could you tell me a little bit about the plans for the commercial land portion of the acres?
Mayor Gallego, Councilmember O'Brien, I'm happy to do that. It's important to note that the commercial portion of the site is separated from the residential portion of the site by a wash. And that wash makes it impractical to link the 75 acres and the 5 acres. So the 5 acres physically stands alone. At the time we submitted the application, Lennar, of course, is your applicant. So Lennar Residential Builder had a fully blown plan for the 75 acres. The 5 acres of commercial are subject to a PHO requirement. Councilman Pastor already visited that on the prior case. You know what has to happen. It has to come back through the full public hearing process, including the Village Planning Committee, the Planning Commission, and the Council when they are ready for a site plan on that site. What I can tell you, however, is that when Lennar began to market this property, they immediately got interest from commercial developers who essentially engaged in a mini auction with Lennar, and we selected Diversified Partners to be our commercial developer partner. Mr. Scott Hinsey has been at all of our public meetings to address commercial development of the site. His company is willing to invest in the site, and I think that is the most telling thing. Most of our consultants who are here today are getting paid to be here, including me. But Mr. Hinsey doesn't get paid. He wants to invest in this community because his company, which is a reputable company in our community, believes in the commercial possibilities for this site.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Mayor, could I please have that consultant come up?
Yes.
Councilmember, did you want Mr. Hinsey?
I would, please.
Scott, I gotta go around that way. They will stop you if you come the other way. And as a reminder, name, address.
Hello, Scott Hinsey, 18002 North 53rd Place, Scottsdale, Arizona, 85254. I work with Diversified Partners Commercial Real Estate.
Thank you for joining us today. Could you please tell me a little bit about what you guys envision for that commercial land, or do you intend to work with the community to see what kind of things they want, or have you already?
Yes, yes on both questions. So one of the things that is slightly confusing when Mr. Scott Anderson shows that center that's just across the street, there's only one vacancy in that center, and it's about 2,400 square feet. All the rest of it is occupied by both visually driving through it and online on listing services. There's only one space there. New development in Phoenix, new commercial development, is so hard to make work right now, and we have to be very picky about where we go, where we think we have lots of users that would want to be here. In both the neighborhood meeting, which Mr. Steven Anderson put on, I had several folks from the community asking, can I do a nail salon? Can I do this? And I said, absolutely, you know, we'd love to have you. And the neighbors in this particular community are very passionate. I've got to see a lot of opposition to the whole project, and the neighbors seem great. You know, it's the kind of customers that I want for our center. So we'll have to go through the whole process again, a public process, meeting with neighbors, meeting with hearing officers, getting things approved. So we're looking forward to doing that and being a good part of this community.
Thank you so much, sir. I don't have any more questions, Mayor.
Thank you so much. Close the public hearing. We will have two separate votes. We'll first begin with item.
I'm sorry, I should have said I don't have any more questions for them. I do have questions for Josh. Should that have been part of the public hearing?
Nope, I think that we can close the public
Okay.
hearing and.
Thank you. Josh, will you please explain to me the purpose of the general plan?
Mayor, Councilwoman O'Brien, the general plan is the voter-approved policy document that provides a vision for the growth, redevelopment, and preservation of the city. One of the prominent components of it is a land use guide that's realized in the land use map.
So in parts of District 1, they're zoned commercial or industrial, and we now have housing going into those areas. How is that allowed?
Mayor, Councilwoman O'Brien, while the general plan provides the policy guidance for what the community envisions to happen on a site, ultimately what can occur on the site is dictated by what's the property is zoned. So you'll have several instances where a property is zoned X, but the general plan says Y. Where those come together is in a rezoning case. So if someone's asking to rezone and they're asking for something that isn't consistent with the general plan, then in cases where the properties of a certain acreage, a general plan amendment would be required to align the zoning and the general plan land use map.
Thank you. How often do the general plan amendments happen, and for what typical uses are they done?
Mayor, Councilwoman O'Brien, I think we average around 15 to 20 a year, and they're primarily for updates to the land use map.
And how often how often do we do a general plan amendment, or general plan? How often do we approve that as a city?
Mayor, Councilwoman O'Brien, we're required by state law to update that every 10 years.
Okay. So if the general plan calls for a particular area to be commercial or industrial, it doesn't lock the land into only being used as commercial or industrial?
Mayor, Councilwoman O'Brien, that's correct.
And that would be done via a general plan amendment?
Mayor, Councilwoman O'Brien, that is correct.
Okay. This land, I understand, is designated by the formal general plan as recreational. Can you tell me the zoning of standard recreational land, like the Apache Trailhead System, for example?
Mayor, Councilwoman O'Brien, public recreation land doesn't have a specific zoning use. As an example, most of our city parks have some type of single-family zoning on it. Private recreation land would require a special permit, like say a golf course, but most public parks are zoned some type of single-family zoning.
What is the current zoning for this section of land?
Mayor, Councilwoman O'Brien, it is RE43, one of our residential districts, and RE43 special permit.
And under the current zoning of this land, would homes be allowed to be built by right?
Mayor, Councilwoman O'Brien, yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, Josh. I'm ready to make a motion. Actually, I'd have some comments first. As mentioned in the presentation by the applicant, this land was initially Arizona State Trust land. State land has a fiduciary responsibility to ensure the land is sold for the highest possible value to benefit the trustees. And there are many beneficiaries from state universities to the Department of Corrections to the public district schools. And as a former Deer Valley School Board member, I'm thankful to the State Land Department for their oversight of the trust and the responsibility they bear for ensuring the land in their purview sells for the highest possible value. In this particular case, Lennar purchased the land at 2 times the appraised value. As we heard from our planning director earlier, this land is currently zoned for housing today. It is not zoned for recreational land. Although the general plan from 2015 may designate this area as a recreational use, it is not required or stuck in being used as recreational land. That is the purpose of the general plan amendment. Sometimes the needs of the city change over time, and in this case, the city was not in such a dire housing crisis over 9 years ago as we are now today. 9 years ago, we were not the fastest growing county in the country for 3 years in a row. We need this housing, and knowing that we're not taking away existing recreational land means the community isn't losing anything, but instead gaining new neighbors and new businesses. And one of the requirements that I insisted upon is the disclosure statement that the new homeowners will be required to sign, so that it is not just a cursory, hey, by the way, they will have to sign and acknowledge that they are moving into or next to a recreational area. So with that, I make the motion to approve per the Planning Commission recommendation and adopt the related resolution.
Second.
Comments? Roll call.
Galindo Elvira.
Yes.
Guardado.
Yes.
Hodge Washington.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Pastor.
Yes.
Waring. Stark.
Yes.
Gallego.
Yes.
Passes 8-0.
Item 60.
I move to approve per the Planning Commission recommendation and adopt the related ordinances.
Second.
Comments? Roll call.
Galindo Elvira.
Yes.
Guardado.
Yes.
Hodge Washington.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Pastor.
Yes.
Waring. Stark.
Yes.
Gallego.
Yes.
Passes 8-0.
That concludes the agendized portion of our meeting. We will now go to the final portion, which is citizen public comment. I'll turn to our city attorney to introduce that portion.
Thank you, Mayor. During citizen comment, members of the public may address the City Council for up to 3 minutes on issues of interest or concern to them. The citizen comment session is limited to 30 minutes. The Arizona Open Meeting Law permits the City Council to listen to the comments, but prohibits council members from discussing or acting on the matters presented.
Thank you. We'll begin with Eric Nielsen, followed by Terrence.
Hello, my name's Eric. One thing I noticed about the city of Phoenix is everyone's complaint about the city of Phoenix is that they're being bullied by the city of Phoenix. The city of Phoenix is doing this, it's doing that. It's not fair. They're stepping on my toes, yada, yada, yada. I think it's interesting that the city of Phoenix is currently being bullied by both the state and the federal government. The state financially speaking and the federal government through the eyes of a bogus dissent decree. I'll take them in order. The first one being the dissent. I call it a dissent decree because that's what's going to happen to our communities and our crime rates if we just go along with it. But you know, I can't help but think that I met a lot of City of Phoenix police officers, particularly because I had a bad experience with the LAPD. So when I got back to where I'm from, I wanted to know, is it that way everywhere? Is our police department similar to LAPD? The answer is they're not. They're not at all. They don't act with impunity. They don't feel like they're backed up by a conglomerate of semi-shadowy, call them celebrities, call them whatever you want, but they don't think that they can just do whatever they want. And when you think of I want the public, when they think of the City of Phoenix Police Department, you got to remember, just like every big building is a person, a police department is a group of people. And I think what gets lost a lot of the times is the total number of Phoenix Police Department, I think last time I read it, was like 6,000 something people. Okay, there's 2 million people in the city of Phoenix. So by that measure, I'd say they do a good job. Um, and yeah, sure, there might be one or two bad apples, but I mean, we're talking the size of a Division I high school. So tell me anybody in here who went to public high school that there wasn't a bad apple or two around. It's gonna happen. Statistically, it's gonna happen. But back to what I was saying though, the majority of the Phoenix police officers that I've met are somewhat middle-aged, their husbands, their fathers, and more importantly, that they live in the city of Phoenix. They have um, they have an interest in seeing that this city is a beautiful, safe place to live. So I'm running out of time here, so let me get to the point, and I'll go to the other part later on a different day. But I think that the Phoenix Police Department should open an investigative thing in their internal affairs section to investigate wrongdoings by federal law enforcement agencies in the city of Phoenix. If you think that married men are out there making mistakes when they know they have their body camera on, you'd be shocked what mostly young white Caucasian federal agents are willing to do. So just food for thought.
Thank you. Terrence is next, followed by John.
So I'm here to speak on the side of South Mountain Raceway. I have 2 kids that race at that track, and a year ago it was taken from us. I'd like to point out that time, we asked the parks if they planned on getting rid of the track. They told us not to worry. No problem. We got to make some revisions to it. A year after that, we then found out they decided to demolish the track. So having that said, I'd like to know, is there anything the city can do to help us keep our kids either on that track, or is there another place that we can bring them? That is it.
Thank you. And as our city attorney mentioned, this because it was not agendized, is not a back and forth dialogue, but maybe we can see if there's an opportunity to follow up. John is next, followed by Tony.
Hi, everyone. My name is John Courtney. I'd like to speak on behalf of the police department and for the homeless, giving you a little insight what it's like to live on the streets of this city for 5 years and survive. I've had 2 pit bulls attack me. One of them was sicked on me while I was homeless. I've had my tent taken probably 8 times in the last 5 years, but that isn't really the point. I've seen a lot of injustices done, but I've received extreme lenience from the police department and from the DA's office, and I'm very thankful. The police department should be praised for their dedication. When I was here in 2003, I got robbed at gunpoint, decided I was getting out of this city. Next morning, I went to the freeway and put my thumb in the air, and in 5 minutes, had a ride all the way to Flagstaff. I was out of here. But I heard on the news that morning that 2 law enforcement officers were shot and killed in an incident that happened a block away from us that we pretty much witnessed, and another one that morning, and I shed tears for our law enforcement. I admire them very much. Other than that, I'd plead for lenience from the police on behalf of the homeless. The police have the toughest job in this city, the most danger without question, but the homeless have it even rougher just staying alive. And I thank you for the opportunity to speak. God bless.
Thank you, John. Tony is next, followed by Sunny.
Thank you, Mayor. With regard to the DOJ report,
Do you think you could put the microphone a little bit closer? We can hear you, but I would rather more clearly hear you.
here now? Yeah. With regard to the DOJ report, I've seen some stuff happen in the zone. Like a few years ago, I've seen, like on YouTube, I saw a former cop, Brian Krisman, and a female cop plant cocaine on a lady. The lady, it was an African American lady, and they targeted her. And thank God that the security detail at the Forensic Science Center reported what they saw because they were very concerned about it. And she was able to get her charges dropped. And on the caption, it said that the reason why, when they asked him why he did it, he said he was playing a joke on her. And planting drugs on someone is not a joke. So, he should have been fired, but instead, when he stays on, and then a few years later, he shoots and kills a guy named Danny Rodriguez in South Phoenix, and he was just out of control, and all he got was 7 years in prison. And also in that same area in the zone, I've seen a couple of cops I never saw before. They were pulling up on people, like two Hispanic guys, and they used some made up excuse that they smelled marijuana, and they searched them without their consent. They got mad because they didn't find nothing. And less than a minute later, they zoomed past me, almost hit me, and it was two African American guys. They jumped out the car on them and did the same thing and searched them and didn't find anything, so they got mad and just pulled off. So it was like strange encounters. And so I don't see why there shouldn't be any oversight, because that would deter cops from doing stuff like this, the innocent poor people. So thanks a lot.
Thank you. Sunny is next, followed by AJ.
Hello, I'm Sunny. This is my son, Damien. We're here to speak on the South Mountain Speedway. This is the only sport that my son knows. This sport means so much to these kids. This track means so much to these kids. And then it's not only the kids that race out there all the time, but it's the events that we put on to allow other kids that don't play other sports, that wouldn't have the opportunity to do racing, to come out and climb into our kids' cars and get on the track. So, do you want to say something, Bubba?
So, the person that shut down the home track, I'm really mad at, because I love that track, the South Mountain track. The South Mountain track is like the first track I ever raced on. That's all.
So we're asking for help from the city of Phoenix, whether we can get our track back at South Mountain or get placed somewhere else. These kids have nowhere to go. Thank you.
Thank you. AJ is next, followed by Faith.
Hello, AJ Imperial. I am the president of the Valley of Sun Quarter Midget Association, which you're hearing our past members here talking about the South Mountain Speedway. First off, thank you, Mayor and council members, for allowing me to speak today. It's just to get to know what's going on. If you haven't heard or seen it in the news, it's out there. It will be out there for the next couple of weeks and months to come. What we're asking today is that we were recently, kind of a little bit of background of the Speedway. So 1949, it's been around. And so it's a racetrack for kids. It's not adults. Let's make that clear. It's for kids racing. And it's been around since '74. We've been in a lease agreement on paper with the city since 1974 until last November of 2023, in which the City Parks and Recs Department advised us the lease would not be renewed until a third-party inspection that was hired by the city of Phoenix could be done. This was usually done on an annual basis. We provide that to the city, and we have had any issues since then, up until recently. We were told that because there's repairs that need to be done, that we didn't have the resources to complete the repairs, so we're told to cease and desist use of the facility. That's basically taking away the kids racing with no alternatives. And so what I'm asking is that we've tried to work with the Deputy Director of Natural Resources and asked for help. What can we do? Can you give us a seat at the table? Let's come to an agreement. We acknowledge that the repairs do need to be done, but in the August meeting that we went to, they said it was $1 million. That was estimated. I could build a house for $1 million. I could build a racetrack for $50,000. That's a ridiculous amount. So now it's no longer, it's the repairs that's the issue. We were told in the council meeting that times have changed. A racetrack doesn't belong within the South Mountain Park Preserve. My response to that is that the racetrack was there before it was a preserve. It's always been there. We've never had any problems. We have lots of community support, businesses around South Phoenix, even throughout the country, that are willing to help us. But like I said, we were told it was going to be demolished. There hasn't been no alternatives provided to us other than you can't use it no more. Give us another facility. Let us sit down at the table and let's talk about it. Because we know if it gets demolished and turned back to its natural resources, it's going to cost the city probably $1 million, which we know the city doesn't have. And you're going to tell me that you're going to use that money and not fix the local city parks that really need the attention rather than us? So all we're asking, Mayor, is that in your bio, you talk about that you're here to help the community and do every day to make things right, to get results and do that. So we're asking all the council members to come together, the governor, the mayor, and say, let's sit down at the table and let's work it out. That's all we're asking. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Faith is next, followed by Christy. Faith is ill? Okay. Wishing Faith a speedy recovery. Christy is next, followed by Christopher.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and council members. My name is Christy Margario. I'm speaking on behalf of a group of concerned Phoenix citizens that have been working to improve animal welfare in our city. Although last year this council approved updates to the existing animal welfare ordinances, the boots on the ground in rescue have seen no improvement in animal suffering in our city. We can't even be certain these updated laws are being enforced. From our perspective over the last year, no enforcement is occurring. Dogs are still dying on chains. In addition, the homeless pet population is growing exponentially. Our county shelter, which the city has a contract with, has been over capacity for months and is turning citizens away due to limited intake availability. In fact, the current wait time to get an intake appointment is 3 weeks. This means more unhoused, desperate animals on the streets in our communities. This is a dangerous community issue for humans and their pets living in these impacted neighborhoods. This growing problem is controllable. We need to do better. We need intentional enforcement of existing laws. We need to close loopholes in the existing laws. Did you know in our city it is legal to keep a dog in a box for its entire life? Our law defines adequate shelter and it defines restraint, but it does not even contemplate humane confinement. We have been in touch with the Phoenix Police Property Crimes Bureau regarding a particular property with dogs living in boxes and have been advised this setup was legal. The dog had enough room to stand up, lay down, turn around, and it had to eat in the same spot it had to relieve itself. The box allowed for some cross-ventilation, barely. Under the current law, this dog can spend its entire life in this box, and it's legal. We are researching animal welfare laws in municipalities across the country to identify best practices, and we are using this data to make suggested revisions to our current city ordinances. We will be reaching out to each of your offices in the upcoming 12 months with our recommendations, and we hope you will consider working with us to get our animal welfare laws updated to close loopholes and revise language to make existing laws more enforceable by adding measurable standards. We look forward to working with you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for that update. Christopher is next, followed by Deborah.
Hello, City Council and Mayor. My name is Christopher. I just wanted to let you know I arrived here in Phoenix in November of 2022 that is. After a short stay at Central Arizona Shelter Services, I became a client to one of the local shelters. While there, I continued my sobriety of 8 years. I also obtained employment. After being there for several months, I actually obtained a promotion and decided it was time to move on. After moving into my apartment, which is basically at 40th Street in Thomas, after moving in, I contracted various infections. I even found out a month after moving in that I had rats really bad. I had no advocate to speak on my behalf to deal with the apartment complex. And due to my mental illness, I wasn't able to do it myself. So eventually I just moved out and I went on my merry way. So what I'm proposing is to have an advocacy program to where when people do get out of shelter, that they have somebody to speak on their behalf and to stick up for them, because it's not enough to just do it yourself, not in this day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the suggestion. Deborah is next, followed by Kate.
Notes. Thank you for your time today. My name is Deborah, and I'm here to talk about a deeply important issue, how we care for those experiencing homelessness in our city shelters. The truth is, our shelters are struggling due to a lack of accountability and proper training among the staff. This isn't just a minor issue, it's one that affects the safety, dignity, and well-being of some of the most vulnerable people in our community. In my time navigating these services, I've seen the consequences of this firsthand. I've watched as favoritism and inconsistent rule enforcement create an atmosphere of fear and mistrust. People are being kicked out for minor infractions, while others who may have been more problematic are allowed to stay for more serious, infractions. This kind of environment isn't just unfair, it's harmful. But there is more. I've personally encountered a staff member who, without any medical background or knowledge of my history, without even any knowledge of what medications I had, advised me that I should stop taking my medication except for my inhaler because I needed that to breathe. This is dangerous. It's not just misguided, it is dangerous. What if she had said this to someone with a serious mental illness, someone who perhaps, did what she said? It could end up being potentially life just huge to the people around them. As this is just one example among many, I could tell you stories that would probably shock most of you, but I know many other people, have their own experiences too. These stories all point to the same problem. Our shelter staff need more training, especially in dealing with people who have experienced trauma. We have elderly individuals, veterans, and people who have been through severe abuse. These are human beings with unique histories, weaknesses, and strengths, and they deserve to be treated with understanding and respect. I urge you to take immediate action. First, every person entering a shelter, I would like to see, receive a handbook that clearly outlines the rules, policies, and crucially, how to contact an independent third party for grievances or serious concerns. This would ensure that complaints are taken seriously and handled fairly, not brushed aside by the very staff who might be involved in the situation. It's very important to have this, as transparency is a good thing, and staff would know that they need to be held accountable for their actions. Additionally, I strongly urge you to consider implementing a third-party care team to assess new intakes. Some individuals are in shelters now need more than just a roof over their head and the basic services that they receive. They need specialized care that goes far beyond what the current staff can provide to them. Right here in Phoenix, my time is running out. I would just like to say that we would like to have more advocacy because there's just not enough, and there's too much fear among the homeless people that they could lose their housing if they open their mouth about certain things that they're experiencing by the treatment of the staff. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Kate is next, followed by Frank.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and council members. My name is Kate Civilala, and I'm the founder of Poverty Pets, a grassroots organization established in 2006, focused on providing spay and neuter services in our underserved communities. For the past 18 years, Poverty Pets has consistently hosted monthly spay and neuter clinics. Poverty Pets is boots on the ground. Before each clinic, we go door to door distributing flyers, promoting our free spay and neuter clinic. We operate on the front lines, bearing witness to the root causes of Phoenix pet overpopulation epidemic. We also encounter significant levels of animal cruelty. In our underserved community, free-roaming dogs and cats are a community-wide issue fueled by the lack of owner accountability and insufficient law enforcement. The City of Phoenix third-party contract with the Arizona Humane Society further complicates this issue. For years, neglect and cruelty occurring in our underserved communities have been ignored. In June 28, 23, I was present in this chamber when the Phoenix City Council passed Ordinance G7131, amending the city code related to animal cruelty. This ordinance was intended to eliminate subjectivity and strengthen the requirements for adequate shelter, including provisions for protection from extreme weather, proper ventilation, and drainage. Despite the passage of the ordinance, when we reported inhumane conditions of dogs confined 24/7 in makeshift boxes, Arizona Humane deemed these conditions legal. In July of 2023, Poverty Pets reached out to each council member and the mayor with pictures of these deplorable conditions. We were stumped by Arizona Humane Society's conclusions that the dogs being kept in such cruel confinement was deemed legal, even though they were forced to live in their own waste, confined in boxes where temperatures exceeded 100 degrees. Arizona Humane Society justified their stance by stating that the temperature inside the boxes was 15 degrees lower than the ambient temperature, and that as long as the animals did not show signs of urine scald or have feces attached in which they could not defecate on their own, this was deemed legal. Regrettably, we received only 3 responses from our emails. One council member dismissed the issue as it being outside their district, while the other 2 punted the matter back to Arizona Humane. We also reached out to the Phoenix Crime Bureau, with whom we had previously met. They too punted back to the Arizona Humane. In closing, this is just one of the many situations that highlights our urgent need for stronger enforcement of animal welfare leagues and greater accountabilities from all parties involved. We must do better for our citizens in underserved communities and the animals. Thank you.
Thank you. Frank is next, followed by Elizabeth.
Hello, City Council. My name is Frank Urban. I'm at 209 West Jackson, not too far from here. I would like to speak on the consent decree if I can. In my opinion, we need this because the police definitely need oversight, especially where the homeless is concerned, because of various civil rights violations that they have committed. I myself was homeless for 4 years up in Sunny Slope. Well, this was a while ago, but I was homeless 4 years up there before that. And I personally have been cited just for standing on the sidewalk, not doing anything, not doing any drugs, no drugs on me, no alcohol on me or near me, but I was still cited. And on a related note, I had just read a few days ago that we're putting up another $80 million high-rise hotel. We do not need that money to go to something like that. We need it for affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth is next.
Hello, Elizabeth Venable back again. It's a new season. Anyways, I wanted to share with you guys something that I learned about myself basically over summer break. So I'm going to call it what I did over my summer break. And that was, I figured I had stones in my face, and they're calcium stones. And this led me to a lot of reading. And you can probably imagine when I read on something, I read a lot of it. And I found out that there was only one cause of these kind of stones, and it was called hyperparathyroidism. And it's a disorder of the parathyroid gland. And actually, it either you're born with it or it's a cancer. And I still have to figure out, is it from birth or is it a cancer? They haven't done the imaging yet, right? But it was such a relief in some ways to find this out, because my entire life, I have lived with this phenomenon. It has made me, I take a lot of responsibility for my mental health. I think more than what people would expect. And it enables me, by being compliant, things like that, to be pretty functional in society, where if I wasn't on the medication, I'd be wanting to kill myself every single day. Like, literally, it's not a joke. And, in some ways, it really angers me because, I always get the gold star from the behavioral health people. Oh, you're so self-aware and you do so good and you're reaching out to services, you take your pills. All this time, no one has cared to find out what is the medical reason behind my serious disorder. Literally, I had to figure this out by myself. Then upon finding it out, I've had so many gatekeepers. And some of them are incompetent. They're like a resident from a really poor school, that I'm not going to mention, that literally treated me as though I was a hypochondriac. And they listed me as a schizoaffective female Elizabeth Venable. It's like being called, any sort of random title as your only identity to this person. And I just wanted to share with you, maybe some of the people that we want to judge, maybe they're just cancer patients. And if I can have these problems and have them not being diagnosed, they can as well. So I just want to share, because I thought it was important that you guys think about these are medical issues, not all moral.
Thank you for that testimony. We have completed everyone who registered before the meeting began in person. We do have some individuals who are registered, both virtual and who came during public comment, who we have not gotten to. We will have them go first at the next meeting. We are adjourned.